Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this evening's King's Board of Education public meeting to order. Mr. Morrow, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Phillips,
Here.
Ms. Groff,
Here.
Ms. Cowan,
Here.
Mr. Skrull,
Here.
Mr. Belfrom.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're really fine.
May I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
I'll make that motion. I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. May I also have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. And lastly, if I could, may I make a motion to suspend this evening's time limit for public participation?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
Mr. Morrow, could you call the roll, sir?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. And with that, next on the agenda are the reports and presentations. Mr. Sears?
Yes, thank you, President Belfrom. We have two reports this evening, and we're very excited about this first one. And I'd like to welcome two of our outstanding high school teachers, Mrs. Lindsay Six and Ms. Valerie Eldridge, to the microphone. They are going to introduce some students that are going to provide some great information and share some of the awesome things that are happening at Kings High School.
All right, well, hello there, for the entrance. My name is Valerie Eldridge, and this is Lindsay Six. We are Spanish teachers at the high school. We help lead the race team along with our colleagues Caitlin Sandals, Emily Chapman, and Caitlin Gilbert. Our race team is our PBIS Student Leadership Group. Our team consists of over 150 outstanding students. We're excited to announce that we have two incredible student leaders who will be speaking to you all not only tonight, but for the rest of the school year.
Grace Jones is a senior at KHS who has been actively involved in the race team throughout her high school years. Because of her strong leadership skills, we have chosen her to be one of the two student leaders of the King's Freshman Camp, aka KFC. Caitlin Herzel is a freshman who joined the race team this year because she had a great time at KFC last year, and she wanted to get involved in high school. She believes in the pillars of race, and we have already seen her modeling them this year.
Grace and Caitlin are here to tell you about some of the many great things that happen at our high school.
Hello, my name is Grace Jones, and I am a senior, and I have been in the King's local school district for 13 years. I am the daughter of Mrs. Jones, third grade teacher at Camden, and the sister of a 2019 King's graduate, Carrie Jones. I'm excited to talk to you guys this week. I'm a freshman here at King's High School. I have a younger sister here in the King's district at Columbia Intermediate School. I'm really excited to get more involved throughout my years here at King's. What is race? We are here this school year on behalf of race. We are here today to talk about all the awesome things that go on behind the console doors. As a team, our job is to share a message of respect, accountability, integrity, service, and enthusiasm. If a student is caught demonstrating any of these traits by a staff member or a race team member, incoming freshmen come to the high school for 2 days. The race team members provide tours of the high school, they teach about the pillars of race, and help calm the fears of the incoming freshmen that may have with coming to us.
This year, the Arts Department has created a National Art Honor Society. 17 students were recognized for showing outstanding ability. Last Tuesday, they hosted a free community art night. These nights are opportunities for families to come and enjoy a free activity involving the arts. We had a great turnout. Thank you to KHS teacher Carrie Pertricks for devoting the time to our students and to the
On another note, our band is so talented. We spent all summer long putting in hours of work to create the most spectacular performances for us. Even at away games, they work with the cheerleaders and student sessions to sing the fight song. To meet products and consider we aren't just a school, we are a family. The band won the honor of being named the grand champion at the Bellworth Invitation. On October 27th, the KHS Orchestra is having a concert here in the auditorium at 6:30 p.m.
Service. Recently, the National Honor Society members volunteered to help in the King's Closet, which provides free garments to students in need of the youth district. Members switched out all the spring and summer clothing for fall and winter clothing.
Spanish National Honor Society. Students and seniors that take Spanish can also be a part of the Spanish National Honor Society. They must have at least a 3.5 GPA. This year, there are over 95 students in this society. They'll have their induction ceremony this Thursday, October 20th. They just got done sponsoring an Hispanic Heritage Month themed raffle to raise money for the George Gonzalez Scholarship Fund, as well as his mural in memory.
Clubs. This high school encourages all students to get involved in extracurricular activities. We offer over 30 clubs. There's something for everyone. Students even have the opportunity to create their own club, for example, a women's study club or a guitar club.
Athletics. Being athletics is certainly one of the most exciting things happening in the district. The football team has an amazing record of 8-1 so far. They're headed to Anderson this week for their last regular season. The Lady Knights volleyball team won 2022, won their first ACC championship since 2013. The Lady Knights soccer team is currently 8-7-1. They are playing in the tournament this Saturday, October 22nd. The men's soccer team has a record of 8-7-2. They played with Little West yesterday to start off the tournament and won 3-1.
Men's and women's goal finished up. They both placed fourth in these. Shout out to Garrett Holland for qualifying for OHSAA All State Championships in Columbus. Women's tennis, 8-9, finished up their season 5th in ACC. They were the only team in the Southwest Ohio to get the sportsmanship award. The East Cross Country team has been running well. Sam Thomas also has earned the spot as the fastest runner in King's history. King's cheerleaders are getting ready for their first competition on October 23rd at Northwood High School. Congratulations to all of our fall athletes.
Senior Day of Service. The seniors participated in the Day of Service by serving in our community. They went to Matthew 25, Work Halls, Carter Ford, Gorman Farm, Janet Burns, Valley View, 771.
Military Week. We celebrated Military Week by wearing clothes and logos of each branch. This week serves as an opportunity for students to learn about military options after high school. Students and staff are able to honor a current or past military member of their family, and make sure to post on the announcement signs.
Homecoming. Many students participated in the homecoming parade and block party to kick off homecoming weekend. The dance is held at Great Lodge, where students dance the night away under the stars. Congratulations to the King and Queen of Brady, Good, and Ellie Crook. The race team held a door decorating contest during homecoming week to show our school spirit. Congratulations to Ms. Gilbert's senior class on winning the contest. The out-of-town assembly showed the first time music put together by the racing cheerleaders. It was epic.
Thank you so much for letting us share some of our favorite memories here at KHS of the school year so far. We'll be back each month to update you all on the fun and exciting things that happen at our castle.
Good job, ladies.
Thank you guys so much for coming. That's amazing that all of that happened in one quarter. So we really appreciate you girls coming. I know that's not easy to stand up in front of everybody. So thank you.
Great job, Grace and Faithlin. We look forward to next month's update. So we appreciate everything you've done and especially the organization of your amazing teachers as well. So thank you all for being here. We look forward to celebrating the great stuff that happens at Kings High School throughout this school year. Moving on to the next presentation, I just want to take Mr. Morrow and I want to take a few moments that since last week's conversation and special meeting of the board where we announced reductions associated with if the levy would not pass, we received a number of questions that we want to just address with some facts around just some of the questions that have come up through the community over the last week or so. And so as we do this, we'll provide some quick information. Again, just trying to provide factual information because there's sometimes different communication that takes place, and we want to provide and make sure people are hearing that from us. So the first thing we want to talk about is, Dawn, you have that? Okay. First thing we talk about is administration. So when we look at administration, just some of the questions we've received around what does administration look like at Kings? How many do we have and what are corresponding ratios and how does that relate to other school districts? So looking at this, we have 25 administrators per the ODE, Ohio Department of Education. This is less than the state average when we look at a student per administrator ratio. So we've taken some comparison schools that have been in question, but also it provides a little bit of locally as well. You will see Kings, we average 182.21 students per administrator as that compares to the state and also as that compares to our some of our neighboring districts. So looking at that, we from an efficiency standpoint, we have our administrative ratios are at a level that are fairly efficient.
The next question that we've gotten numerous times is just some additional clarification on state revenues. So last week we reported out that we are the lowest school in Warren County as far as dollars received from the state of Ohio. And in the 4-county area, which includes Hamilton, Claremont, Warren, and Butler, we've fallen 45th place out of 49. So a couple clarifications. One, we didn't do anything wrong to be in the state funding predicament that we're in. It's not a missed deadline or missed indicators. This is completely driven by the state's formula, which has numerous inputs that go into it and ultimately gets weighted by your district's income and property values. And Kings has above average income and property values. So the weighting says Kings can afford to pay for their own kids' education, that we don't get subsidized as much as other districts across the state.
We've been asked routinely, when would we expect the reductions? So if the levy does not pass November 8th, when would reductions go into place? The reductions that we outlined last week and that we've communicated will be implemented starting for the 23-24 school year. There's very little that we would be able to implement this year based on service contracts and services that we're currently providing students. So we would be looking to implement that for the 23-24 school year. The next one is, what happens if the levy passes? What can we expect? So a few things that we would expect is that we would look to maintain our current staffing and service levels. So a lot of the high quality programs, some of which were outlined by our students a few minutes ago, but also looking at our class size ratios and many of the opportunities for students. So this would be able to maintain, we're not looking to add significantly to programming. This is really to offset additional expenditures that we've had and we've been experiencing over the last few years. Through that, we have a commitment to continuing to analyze programming and services to extend the life of this levy, should it pass, for as long as possible. So Mr. Morrow and I have had significant discussions as we've analyzed a lot of the financial situation within our district over the last few months. And we've identified that we need to have some significant work done on our world to work to try to extend this levy as long as possible. So that's something we're committing to. That'll be a long-term process, but we would start that right away. 2 points to note that we are in all of our communication, we've been pretty clear about this from the beginning, that we would continue to add and look to add a couple of areas right now that are pain points for our school district. And I've outlined this in board meetings, but also in a lot of community conversations and other pieces. Number one, we would look to continue to add safety and security personnel and mental health personnel to our school district. So currently we have added some safety personnel, 2 resource officers to our district, plus 2 campus security folks at our high school. We would look to continue to add those folks over time. Part of the rationale we weren't able to add this summer is there is a staffing shortage within the Warren County Sheriff's Office as well, which we've talked about previously. So if we wanted to, we wouldn't have been able to, but we'll continue to look at doing that as we continue to move on. The second one is we would continue to analyze our English as a second language staffing levels. We've seen a significant increase in the number of students in our district that speak other languages other than English, and they're coming into our district with very little English skills. And so we've seen currently we have approximately 380 students in our district that are speaking other languages, there are 32 languages currently spoken by the students within Kings. What that creates is that's a challenge that currently we're not at the staffing levels to appropriately support those students in the classroom. And that creates a significant burden on our classroom teachers to not only instruct our students who are proficient in English, but also our students who are not. And so that's significant work. We would look to continue to add some personnel over time to address the staffing levels to meet the needs of those students.
Is the 2016 levy expiring? So we've said multiple times that the 2016 levy was supposed to last 3 years, but it actually lasted 6. So we wanted to clarify that that does not mean we're not going to collect any money from the 2016 levy. That just meant that when that levy was put on, the district estimated that it would last 3 years without any additional new revenues or significant expense reductions. But that levy will be collected indefinitely for a continuous period of time. So the 2022 levy is on top of all the other levies that Kings has ever passed. And one other clarifying point that keeps getting brought up is as properties increase, don't you get more money from those properties? So we wanted to show this graph that shows as your property values increase, the district doesn't get additional revenue. Your tax rate goes down. And that's state law passed in the 1970s. And I think this graph shows this nicely. Over time, the tax rate's going down as values have increased at Kings.
We've also received a number of questions about preschool and why there were not identified reductions associated with preschool. So I'm going to ask Dana Martin she is our resident expert on preschool, and we'd like her to share a little bit about the preschool experience.
Sure. I really had wanted way more slides than one. So I had to fit a lot on one. So you're going to hear me talk a lot more because I wanted more slides. At the bottom, we put a couple links to the U.S. Department of Education and around IDEA and the rules around preschool from the U.S. Department of Education, as well as Ohio's rules administrative code around preschool also. So you can go to those to get way more details than I'm going to give you. Well, that got a little louder. Yeah, I'll go back. I'm going to talk about the first. We are required by law to have a preschool program or provide services and tuition to preschool age special ed students. I'm going to talk about the or first, so you understand why we actually provide the program. If you read in there, this year you can see we currently have 75 students with special needs in our program. When a child turns 3, no matter when that is, whether that's September, December, April, May, by law, they come into the program. So you have to have a continuum of programs through the whole year. So we right now have 23 students that are being evaluated by the time they turn age 3, or already 3 and we're being evaluated per referral. So we already have around 75 to 100. Last year, we ended with around 90 something at the end of the year for the students with disabilities as preschool students. Now, remember, every year, about a third of them go to kindergarten, and that gives us the space for the new students to come in, ages 3, 4, and 5. So if we did not provide the program, what the law says is you have to, I'm going to go to my notes. If we did not provide it, we would have to pay their tuition at whatever preschool program their parents choose to send them. We would have to send an itinerant teacher, that's preschool language. An itinerant teacher has a caseload of preschool students, and they would have to go serve the student at whatever program they're at. And they have a pretty small caseload because you have to travel. We would also have to send every service the student has on their IEP, speech, PT, OT, audiology, hearing, whatever that is. So due to all those reasons, you could have up to 6 to 9 teachers, depending on the travel, because we don't get to choose where they go, as well as all those other services. To create the program in the district is a bit more cost effective because we don't all have a lot traveling, and we have caseloads that we can adhere to in the district. So we have a program in the district. Part of the law is you have to have typical students, right? Because if you think about K through 12 special education, we want all of our students included as much as possible. So part of the law around preschool is you have typical students. Typical students do pay tuition. Special needs students do not pay tuition. So that is how our program is set up. We follow all the rules. If you think about what we talked about last week around caseloads for special education, all those rules apply to preschool, and we have to have the same continuum. So you can't just offer one class of preschool. You have to offer from a typical preschool where about a third is special needs to what they call an integrated preschool program, which is 8 typicals, 8 special education students, or even a special education class, which is just special education, and that has different caseloads. So even very much like K through 12, we have different caseload rules in preschool. There's a lot of different rules in preschool. One of the questions we've had is, why do we offer childcare? So we offer childcare for this reason, I believe. But we do lose childcare rooms every year because our preschool grows so much. Childcare is offered, and everybody pays for childcare. That includes special needs. So preschool's only half a day. And then if you stay for childcare, the other half of preschool, you pay for that. If we didn't offer childcare, some of our parents who work with children with special needs would have to send their students to other preschools. Then that kicks in, we have to go to that preschool to serve that student. So we go back to itinerant teachers. We don't have to pay their tuition because we have the program here, so they can come here for free. If they choose to go somewhere different, they pay their own tuition. But if we didn't have childcare and they had to go somewhere different, we would have to send our itinerant teacher, all the services and everything again. So because of that, it's nice to have childcare because we keep more of our typicals and we keep our special needs in the program. I've had some questions around having an administrator in the building. It is a school. We run over 200 students in there. The rules are around special needs students and district reps. So a district rep must be at every meeting we have in special needs. In a preschool, we have close to 75 to 100 students, close to over 200 meetings a year that we must have an administrator in as the district rep. To be a district rep, you have to be able to make every decision in that meeting around money. So administrators are trained in that through me and my office around those decisions. We also have that administrator because there are rules around the curriculum through preschool, as well as rules around evaluating teachers and the paraprofessionals. So that administrator is just like any other building principal. You also remember kids are being bused, there's discipline, there's parents, there's food, there's lots of things they do all day long for the students. One of the reasons I believe it's valuable that we keep the program at King's and we have this program versus the cost effectiveness of it, because I think it would be way more expensive to provide out, is we then work all of our students in that program, whether they're typicals or preschool, we work closely with our kindergarten staff around our curriculum, about the transition back and forth. Our preschool students with special needs, the kindergarten teacher, whatever building they're going to, the kindergarten teacher, the principal, and the IS come to the meeting in April before they transition to kindergarten. So we make it very seamless for that family, for the kids. We want it to be a next step for our families as they go through the process. You have to remember preschool's hard for families. It's the first time they've sent any of their students, let alone a student with special needs. So we build in some of that extra that is just easy to do if we have all the students here. And truly what we've seen is what's good for our special needs students is good for our typicals that come, because then we now can introduce them to our kindergarten teachers and our staffs too. So that's preschool rules in a nutshell. I could go way long, or much longer, but I think that gives the explanation around our preschool program.
Great, thank you. So at this time, appreciate Dana, you going through that. I think we just wanted to make sure that our community understood the why behind preschool. There's a lot of requirements. There's a significant amount of time, energy, and resources to support our students. These are our youngest learners. The beauty of, and that she outlined this as well, but the beauty of having that here is our students start on a King's curriculum from day one. And so that is a seamless integration when they get into kindergarten and beyond. So thank you for sharing that. At this time, Board of Education, if there's any questions about anything we mentioned, we're happy to take those at this time.
I just thank you for clarifying that. I mean, it's not the preschool that we're used to from our kids when they were, our grandparents, what they were used to. You sent your kids to a little play school for 3 hours and it's completely different. So thank you for clarifying that.
I have a question. I heard in the community from a parent that was wondering, I thought there were 31 staff members at King's. Can you clarify that just a little bit more? You mentioned something. Not on preschool, just earlier in the presentation. Yeah.
Are you referring to the administrators, Mrs. Phillips?
Yes, yes.
So there are 25 administrators within King's. I think sometimes there's just a misconception that, and when we submit information, we provide information, administrative assistants are often included within that. And so there was just a little confusion on what that looks like. So we have 25 administrators are doing that work, but we have administrative assistants, which are more secretarial duties as well. So I think that's the distinction.
And do we also, I know in a presentation, Mr. Morrow, you mentioned that our cafeteria is self-funding and so is our before school and after school care. Are they included in that 25, not included?
They are included in the 25, but as you said, our general operating funds do not pay their salaries or benefits. Those are covered by the before and after care in summer. And then food service is covered by the food service fund. So those are completely separate than the operations. So that would make 23 administrators actually covered by the operating fund.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? All right. Well, I just want to thank Mr. Sears, Mr. Morrow, Ms. Martin, for sharing that information, and also just to reiterate to the community, come to the district administrators for the data and information that you're looking for. It's incumbent upon them, it is incumbent upon your Board of Education. We have a duty to share with you the most accurate information. We have a responsibility to you to do that, and a responsibility, an obligation to the state of Ohio to do that. Oftentimes things get shared, amongst the grapevine, if you will, that just aren't accurate. And we want you to have the most precise information that you can have to make informed decisions with respect to what's best for you. So I would just reiterate that and thank you again for presenting that information. Next on the agenda is public participation. The Kings Local Board of Education encourages all parents, staff members, and community members to attend meetings and encourages visitors to participate in their meetings. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to state his or her reason for addressing the board. We ask that speakers avoid personal attacks on individuals during their public address to the board. If an individual has an issue with an employee, we ask that you request a private meeting with the superintendent or that employee's direct supervisor. Please keep in mind that Board of Education meetings are held so that the board can conduct their business in public. The board president is the spokesperson for the board and may need to consult with other board members in order to respond to the public. If a question from the public can be answered immediately, it may be. However, if time is needed to study the issue, the board may choose to make a statement at a later date. With that, our first speaker this evening is Connor Skrull.
I'm getting a couple texts saying you can't understand the speaker. You want to say something?
And if we could, just please speak directly into the microphone. We're having a little trouble picking up the sound. When Mrs. Gould has the timer set.
Hello, my name is Connor Skrull. I come before you today because I found out that we have school on Tuesday, November 1st, when we should. As you may know, it is the day after Halloween and it also happens to be the day after the Browns play. As a kid myself, I like to stay up late after trick-or-treating and hang out with my friends. I also like knowing that I won't have to wake up early and get ready for school. Because it is a school night, most parents will make their kids go to bed at early hours, which will keep kids from having fun on Halloween. On October 31st, the Browns and Bengals play and kickoff isn't until 8:15 p.m. Families all over will be watching this game between Ohio's 2 NFL teams. Most students probably won't get to bed until after 11 p.m. If we were to have school, most students would miss out on the game. Over the past few weeks, a couple of other students and I have been gathering signatures from students and teachers that think that we should have school on November 1st. We have collected over 350 signatures in a period of 2 weeks. The thing is that you only get 8 kids. Kids should be able to be free and hang out with friends. But if we have school to go to school on November 1st, that would take away lots of kids' chances to hang out with their friends and have fun. I think that it would be in the student's best interest if you would please consider my request to get school off on Tuesday, November 1st during the board's discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
That's how you start public participation.
Thank you, Connor.
Next up is, I do apologize if I'm not reading this. Is it Mandy Huker or Mindy? Mandy, I thought, see, I knew I had it.
Well, I'm not quite sure how I follow that. My God, so I just had to do that. My name is Mandy Hucker, and I'm the parent of 2 current teen students. One is the 8th grade, and one is a senior. I also have a college sophomore who's a kid and graduated in 2021. I'm here to voice my support for the levy. We already know that how schools are funded in Ohio is unconstitutional. We already know that. And when we go to the polls, if it is truly important for you to change that, then you should be voting for the people who will change that. I just wanted to give a little perspective from our family. We moved to a Little Miami school district in 2001, but my husband was hired to teach there. We had no intention of ever leaving Little Miami. My husband still teaches there. We plan to raise our children there. However, levy after levy got voted down, and when we saw the cuts that were going to happen, we knew that we could not stay. It was a tough decision. We were under contract actually to build a house and we had to pull out. But we needed to make a quick decision too, because we knew it was going to affect the housing market as well. We were lucky to break even but friends and family who moved after us did not and lost thousands when they moved. I saw someone recently write on social media, look at Little Miami, they were taken over by the state and now they are thriving. But I'm curious if those saying that person experienced the cuts. Do they know firsthand how it impacted the students or the families or the teachers? Not just when the cuts happened, but down the road. The impacts of those cuts lasted a long time. And you want to know why they're thriving now? It's because the community finally voted for the levy. And because despite all the cuts, the teachers continue to teach. Teachers prove over and over again that they will persevere because of their commitment to the kids. Not passing this levy will be detrimental to our community. We will all feel it. Increased class sizes and elimination of teams at junior high can mean that kids can slip through the cracks. Minimal busing will affect everyone, from the parents who need to drive every day to community members dealing with traffic delays. Half-day kindergarten, elimination of extracurricular activities, pay-to-play sports. These cuts will happen if we don't pass this. They are not scare tactics. We saw it happen at Little Miami. We lived it. We had a kid out of Miami in school there. He experienced the cuts. And I don't want to
Next is Ms. Goodman.
It's even hard sometimes when you at the board members are us. on a price list. If my husband would come home from work one day after being promised a raise, and he comes home and tells him he did not get the raise, there's a lot of disappointment there. But it's not a crisis. He still has a job. But then he comes home the next day and he tells me he no longer has a job. He's fired. That's a crisis. We are not in a crisis here. We can salvage. I think you just have to learn how to budget better in your spending. You say you have from the 216 levy that we stretched it 3 years. In that 3 years, over $7 million net came in. We had over $5 million in COVID alone. I don't have all my notes. I didn't know I was going to be speaking on this tonight. I thought I was just going to be doing the daycare. Another thing
That's
I
your
want to
time.
point out
Miss Goodman, that's your time, madam.
Oh, is it?
Next is Rebecca Veer.
And that email has stated my disappointment at the decision to move the book on the fund to junior high and high school. You may be interested to know that the current FCC regulation would not allow the content of this book to be broadcast on public radio or television. Here the question I asked in that email was if the board could to require parental consent or establishing a rating system for books. It appears that there may have been some misconception concerning this. At last month's meeting, Mr. Beltran stated that quote, we can put in safeguards and control and do what we feel is appropriate here, unquote. Are you considering such options? What are the criteria being used by committees to book consent? Considering that I have invested 10 months into this process, I think I have the right to receive an answer to this question. I've asked this question several times, but it's still not received a response. This question is important because the Board of Education to approve the committee's recommendation that leading work to return to the library project Columbus. So I would like to know whether any of the criteria is in reference to sex of any kind, as such references are found. The focus of comments at last month's meeting did address the board policy on book consent, but you are ignoring the fact that I made a request for an audit of all K through 6 classroom and school library books for several months. The district solution is to develop a communication plan for parents with thousands of books that they cannot approve of. The solution that I have offered is to have each school post an online list of all library books. This would include classroom books by teacher name, as well as books in the school library. This would provide parents with the ability, if they so choose, to look up information on books in their child's classroom or school. In a matter of minutes, you can find detailed information on my reviews and books on this website. But you stated last month that the process, in your opinion, is working. My random searches have provided you with valuable information on several more inappropriate books that come under. They include explicit descriptions of things such as underage sex, drug use, and excessive profanity. So if you are unwilling to perform an audit, at least provide parents the opportunity to do the work themselves. All comments from the board thus far have focused on parents, but the district's financial support comes from the entire community. By publicly posting classroom and school library books online, I feel that this will provide some much needed transparency to the community.
Next is Sandy Kristoff.
Is that okay? You want me to hold something here? I'll just move it right here with the multitaskers here. I'll just try this now. You gonna take that one? You may not even need me to hold it for you, maybe. You just be able to. Test, 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 test. Okay. I'm gonna move it kind of close to here. Okay. I'm gonna pull it up a little too. Thanks. I feel like my own personalized adjustment.
Okay, good.
Can everybody hear her now? Is that okay?
Okay, I just want to follow up on what Rebecca said about the books in the library. I have to say, I personally was shocked last meeting, the last board meeting, to hear that everything's fine with having sexually explicit books in our elementary and intermediate schools. Shocked. But I haven't seen enough response from the community to tell me that there's enough outrage out there. So hopefully that will change. Anyways, I want to address a couple of things about the levy. And one thing that's being said is that the school district is under fiscal oversight by the Ohio Department of Education. And I just want to let you know that according to the Ohio Department of Education website, currently there are no districts that are in fiscal emergency. Since 1996, only 42 districts have been declared and released from fiscal emergency. Currently, King's 5-year forecast shows King's does not reach deficit spending until the end of 2024. Then it's only 1.6 million, not reaching the 2% to be at fiscal watch or fiscal caution. All districts are under oversight due to the fact that they're all required to turn in forecasts twice a year. It seems like we have a pattern of overestimating expenses and underestimating revenue. So I know that Mr. Belfram talked about information coming from the school board. And I think one of the reasons that we're not always inclined to trust everything that we see from the school board is that at the last meeting, there was a comment that 3% per year revenue increase since 2018, but it was neglected to point out that between 17 and 18, there was almost a 10% increase. And after the 2016 levy, it generated income of 45 million. And these numbers are out of the 5-year plan. So these are straight from the school board, 45 million. This year it'll be 57 million. So in addition to the 4.6 million the last levy gave, we've got another $12 million in revenue. So I don't know, the last levy was 4.6. Now we're asking for 7.5 million. Why are we $7 million short? That's what I want to know.
Next is Sam Meisner.
Before I get started, it's not a 7.5 mil levy, it's a 6.4 mil levy. Okay, I just want to make sure we knew it was a 6.4 mil levy. First of all, my name is Sam Meisner. I'm a computer science and engineering teacher here at the high school, which is one of the programs that will be cut if the levy fails. I'm also you can hold it right there for me. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm also the head varsity swim coach and a community member. I also serve as the president of the King's Education Association. And today I want to speak on behalf of the 300 teachers, intervention specialists, counselors, nurses, and speech pathologists. In the midst of what feels like a constant stream of attacks on our profession, some of which have been said at this very platform, this very podium I'm standing at. Members of KEA actually come from a variety of backgrounds and political personal beliefs. Opponents of our schools have wasted tens of thousands of dollars on public records requests in an effort to wage a politically motivated culture war. Despite our teachers' diverse backgrounds, there is at least one thing we all agree on, and that's that we don't want our classrooms to be used as battlegrounds for that culture war. It's become clear that the motivation for these culture wars is to garner distrust in our schools and our teachers. The anti-levy leadership is attempting to mobilize that distrust to work against the levy. These people don't care about our students, they don't care about our schools, and they are willing to watch this community crumble into oblivion if it means not raising taxes a single dollar. They lack integrity and honesty and have continually spread lies and misinformation because they know that's their only chance to fail the levy. It's their only campaign strategy. As we have seen, this district has spent a tremendous amount of time and energy combating these lies. We cannot hand our students, our town, or our future over to misinformation and lies. Thank you, Mr. Sears, Mr. Morrow, and the board for staying strong and putting our students first. I beg the community, vote for Kings on November 8th. Thank you. And since I've got 50 seconds left, I'll also say that for 3 months, I've heard these same people talk about banning books in our schools. Some of the excerpts from these books are simply not in our schools. That's just another one of the lies. And there should be a process for acquiring books. They should be age appropriate. Nobody debates that. But if you want an example of how dangerous it is to use an excerpt from a book as a reason to ban that book, I encourage you to read Ezekiel 23:19. It's a book in the Old Testament of the Bible. And I'd be willing to bet that the people that are advocating for banning books don't want to ban that book. Vote for Kings on November 8th. Thank you.
Next is Ryan Willis.
Feel like I'm in the middle of a war zone here, but anyway, I mean, in terms of kind of setting the stage. So I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old that go to South Lebanon. And I want them to do the best they can in their lives. And education has always mattered to me. My mother is a retired first grade teacher. And I know what it's like to live, have to go through all the battles of levies and all the difficulties and all this jazz. I get it. But when I watched online the presentation that was given, and we started right from the get-go about the cuts that were made, I got to tell you, it didn't go over very well with me. And I'm a parent who's not going to be affected by it. My kids live 2 miles outside, so they're outside a 2-mile radius. That's fine. My kids are also outside of the age of needing all-day kindergarten. But when I looked at it, I said, that's just thumbing your nose to a whole lot of people in our district and families that have 2-parent households that are both working. They need busing. And I get it that busing is a fixed cost and it's an easy cut. We'll just say, oh, we'll just get rid of the busing. But it affects families in ways that I don't think you understand. And it's more than that too, because as I go to school just this past week, I had to pick my daughter up for a doctor's appointment. The traffic at the elementary schools is crazy already. What in the heck do you think that's going to be like when all these parents that live within 2 miles have to drive their kids? For a year and a half, we talked about masks. We talked about all the safety and all these other things that kids needed. But we haven't talked about safety one bit. We're talking about this busing situation. And I'm someone who's going to vote for the levy, for God's sakes. I get it. But it basically just turned me off instantly to say, oh, well, the busing is just a fixed cost and it's low-hanging fruit and we'll just get rid of it. That doesn't make any sense to me. And when you talk about having daycare programs or preschool programs for kids, yeah, I agree that's important too. But guess what? All-day kindergarten matters too. We're saying to people that come into this district, guess what? Well, I preschool with you, but by the time you get here for kindergarten, we're going to cut that in half. And as a mom who's a first grade teacher, I know exactly what that means. That means the first grade teacher takes it on the chin. Now they have to get their kids up to speed from what they should have been doing in kindergarten, not to mention what they need to be doing in first grade. I just wish that somehow, some way, these problems didn't show up overnight. And I wish that people would have thought seriously about how this was going to look to parents. And parents are going to vote for the levy, for God's sakes, in terms of dividing our community. I'm talking about people who are strong advocates of the schools. But when you start off with axing all-day kindergarten, you start off with to be disenfranchising people that live within 2 miles, that's idiotic. Honestly, I just don't have a good answer for that. And I know that you say, we got to make the cut somewhere, but that's not the place to do it.
Next is Mrs. Sheeter.
According to the Ohio, can you hear me? According to the Ohio School Board Association, out of over 600 public school districts, only 10 have continuous levies for new money on the ballot this November. There's a lot more levies on the ballot than 10. I think, if I remember correctly, it's over 100. Many districts, out of concern for their communities like Mason, have moved to a 10-year levy cycle or do 5-year renewals. The historical 5-year forecast from 2016 to 2022 clearly illustrate the pattern that Kings overestimates expenses and underestimates revenues. If this levy passes, Kings will have the highest tax rate in Warren County. I'm extremely concerned about our seniors. Yes, I'm concerned about our schools and our students too, but I'm also concerned about our seniors. They live on Social Security and our young people also, raising families on modest earnings. Inflation and a recession have already hit us all hard. This levy is an unreasonable burden on an already financially stressed community. A yes vote on an enormous levy with continued uncontrolled spending threatens to push people out of their very homes. Meanwhile, King's finances are secure with guaranteed revenues. A comment from a community member that I'd like to share. Is the Kings local school district in fiscal watch or caution under constant contact with the state? Our current cash balance or reserves is 12.5 million reported at the May 2022 meeting. Is that correct? Is it correct that at the end of the 2024 school year, our balance is projected to be a negative 1.1 million? Is it also reasonable to assume, based on historical forecasts, that King's projected revenues, local revenues, are higher and expenses are lower? I noted that in the 2012 forecast, district was projecting a negative 16.7 million deficit when they actually had 11.1 million. I see no reason to be concerned about a state takeover of the district. Do you agree with that data? Thanks for your help. Sincerely, a concerned community member.
Next is Scott Sheeter.
All right, I just want to first start off, there is nobody on the vote no side that is against King. So the stuff that was said, please, yes, sorry. Kings is a very amazing school district. Everybody believes that. We just want people to be able to live here and move here in the future. At some point, the young families will not be able to afford to live here. I also want to dispel then one of the common myths that was brought up tonight, again, about housing values dropping if a levy doesn't pass. That happened one time at Little Miami. They failed 8 straight levies. Ask the Warren County auditor. He will tell you there is no evidence that proves this. Kings failed 2 levies, back in 2019 and 20, we failed levies, building levies. Our property values have gone up. They're not going down. Look at Loveland. They failed their last operating levy. Their property values aren't going down. They cut busing, which again, we shouldn't want to have to do that. And they've also reduced some of their class offerings. They got a 25 out of 25 on the Ohio School District Report Card, a perfect score, and they've cut. So cuts can be made without impacting the quality of the education that is being provided. And then going back to one of the comments that was brought up earlier tonight about the property tax. Kings has seen an increase in real estate tax revenue over the years. From back in 2016, it was 23.3 million. In 2021, it was 34.6 million, an increase of $11.3 million. We are getting more money. If you look at the expected for 2022, it's $37 million. That's an increase from 2016 of $13.7 million. Where's this money going? We are getting more money. Kings has an expense problem. It's not a revenue problem. If you look at the CUP reports from the state of Ohio, Kings has the third highest spending per pupil of all the 8 school districts within Warren County. If this levy passes, we're going to jump up to number 2. I don't think number 1, but it's going to jump because our spending is going to go up. We have to watch that. And then to address some of the comments about the teachers union. The teachers union did sponsor the homecoming block party, which is great, but they do it the 1 year that there's a levy. They're pushing their agenda. They want the levy to pass. Absolutely. If I'm part of that union, I do too. But also this same union provided funding for some of these board members' election campaign.
Mr. Sheeter, Mr. Meisner, that's enough. I'm not going to have these disturbances in the meeting. If you would like to discuss it, you may all do so in the hallway. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Goodman. Thank you very much. Betsy, ma'am, I don't know I can't read your last name. You're next, please. Resner. I apologize. I couldn't read that clearly.
But I've never met him. No, we just know because random people would call us and say, do you know Trent? I'm like, no, I don't know him. But anyways, I want to thank you all for your time tonight, because I know most people would rather be at home in their pajamas watching TV. So I thank you for your time. And as a person who has worked in multiple levels of education, I just think this is a wonderful opportunity for everyone to say we are doing argumentative essays here. And if anyone wants tutoring in English, I am all there. I hope we're also taking a lesson in logic, because we're seeing different points of view, and it's important to evaluate what are emotional, and what are the real facts. So the reason I'm here tonight is that it was brought to my attention. And again, I haven't been into the schools, so I don't know, but it was brought to my attention that there were some books that would have some concerning content in them. And one of them I know has information about suicide ideation. I actually left this country to go work in a country that has the 3rd highest suicide rate among young men, because I was very disturbed that a first world nation would have a huge problem with suicide. And I'm very concerned because a lot of times when young people are having mental health issues, which the school board would like to provide more staff to deal with that, often when they are given an idea, that ideation tends to lead to action. And having worked with this kind of a culture, I am very concerned that young people would have access to that, and being young and not necessarily having the ability to express what's going on in their mind. A young child might decide to act on something instead of finding the help that he needs, because often children have a hard time discussing these things with adults, which I think we all agree. Children need to have a safe place to discuss that. So I would just say that I am a bit concerned if that book really is in the school library for the elementary age children, because that could lead to potential consequences that I don't think anyone here would want to see. I think we would want to see someone with a mental health problem getting help. And it is also very important for me to make it open to have a conversation, to say, I'm struggling with depression. I've had ideas of taking my life. I think we do need to have those conversations, but at the same time, to have a book giving that ideation to a child, I think there might be better ways of handling that. So I would just encourage the school board to maybe just look into that and be aware that sometimes that's something that can just slip in and you don't maybe see it in a book, and then somebody else does see it and say, hey, there's a problem here, and maybe we can work on this together, finding a better solution to providing a better resource to these children. So thank you.
Next is Carolyn Dillon. I have to ask, am I saying that correctly? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Dillon, and it is a privilege to have just started my 25th year teaching music in the King's District. At some point, my students may walk in to see silver decorations hanging from my classroom ceiling. Maybe cake should be involved. On a serious note, it has truly been an honor to teach 5th and 6th grade students to read, perform, and relate to music the past 19 years. Columbia students bring me so much joy. I love to go to work each day and share this frequently with friends who aren't teachers. I truly love what I do. Is it exhausting? Yes. Is it a huge challenge to meet the needs of all of my students? Absolutely. Is it hard to keep up with the daily demands of meetings and emails and grading and phone calls when I just want to teach music? You bet. The trade-off is I get to take responsibility for my students' musical growth as they learn to play a new groove on bucket drums, strum a new pattern or chord on their ukulele, learn to sing in different languages, actively listen to and evaluate a new style of music, or make connections to the contemporary musicians we learn about in class. For many kids, this is the class they look forward to. This is the class they're passionate about. This is the class they feel success in. Their joy, the joy in their faces in the aha moments is priceless. And I'm taken aback to this day when students thank me as they walk out of my class. Recently, we learned that the K-6 specials classes would be dramatically affected if the upcoming operating levy doesn't pass. I felt as if I'd been punched in the stomach as I tried to process this devastating news, first from my principal and then from our superintendent. It's the first time in 25 years of teaching I fear students will lose the opportunity to create music in our schools. My fellow music educators and I know the following to be true. Music has positive effects on academic achievement. Music cultivates deeper thinking and attentiveness. Musicians are team players. Music affects emotions, clearly, and it allows for expression. Music helps children develop human connection and social skills. Music is an expression of culture. For 5 years in a row, our district has been named one of the best communities for music education by NAM, the National Association of Music Merchants. This is due to the tireless hours all of the music teachers in our district spend planning for teaching, encouraging, and loving your children. And now the existence of music education in our schools is on the line. Former U.S. Secretary of Education William Bennett once said, "The arts are an essential element of education. Just like reading, writing, and arithmetic, music, dance, painting, and theater are all keys that unlock profound human understanding and accomplishment." After a tumultuous couple of years successfully navigating through a pandemic, now is not the time to cut back on arts education in our schools. Now is the time to rally for what we know is best for our students, what has made Kings one of the most desirable communities in the area. Thank you, Mr. Sears and members of the Board of Education for your continued support of our students, staff, and for your service to this wonderful community that I've called home for the past 25 years. Thank you.
Next is Abby Smith.
and I'm part of the Women's Center, and I just want to talk about some of the good things that Kings has to offer. Oh, okay, I'm so sorry. So I just wanted to talk about some of the amazing things that Kings has to offer here that are kind of up for grabs right now. To start off is AP classes. I've been taking AP classes for as long as I could, and they're just great for getting challenging content that you couldn't get in at other classes, and they really help you to prepare you for college. I've also passed every single one of my AP exams, and I'm also an AP scholar due to all of the amazing teachers that we have here and that they love to teach, especially in these topics. Also, the elective classes that we have here at King's are just phenomenal, and it would be really sad to see them go, especially since they're kind of, up for grabs at the moment. So they really just helped me decide for what I wanted to do with my life. So specifically, that is like the biomed classes here at King's. Medical interventions, I took that class last year, and it really helped me to figure out what I wanted to do with my future, and I'm extremely thankful for that. And they also keep school so interesting and so much fun. So I'm in the AP Computer Science Principles class this year, and it's really just so different from what I've done recently, and it's incredible, especially since like everything in our society is switching over to be sort of tech-based. So it's great to have an understanding of that. And then AP Psychology is one of my favorite classes, and I think it's amazing, and I think that everyone should have an opportunity to take it. As well as the arts classes, there's such a good switching from school that's, all books and math to switch over to something that you can express yourself in. I think it's really an important part of being a student at King's is being able to take part in all of these different classes. And then the extracurriculars that we have here are an extremely important part of my experience at King's. The National Honor Society, with our community outreach and volunteering, we're able to help within the community, which I think is extremely beneficial. And it would be a shame to not have that opportunity for students. And then sports, I've been an athlete my entire life, and sports are incredibly important to me. And I think that every student should have the opportunity to participate in that. And then clubs, they keep you able to connect with students with similar interests outside of the classroom, and that can involve really anything. So I think that's really fantastic. So yeah, I just wanted to state that King's is great, and I think that we should keep it that way. So yeah, vote for King's.
Next is Carrie Pertricks.
Put this up a little higher for you. Do you want me to hold it? You can. That might work better.
Hi, my name is Carrie Perdricks, and I am a very proud elementary school counselor here in Kings. When I explain to our littlest learners what a school counselor does, I say that my job is to help make sure our children feel safe and happy at school. When our children feel safe and happy, their brains are available for learning. For our children to feel safe and happy, they need to feel emotionally connected to the grown-ups caring for them and the students they share their classrooms with. These essential connections are made through morning meetings where the children greet each other by name and have the opportunity to learn new things about one another. Through intentional, positive social interaction led by our talented teachers, where our students have the opportunity to play together, to laugh, to be silly, to be kids. The payoff of just these two examples of intentional teacher-led time for joy is priceless. The science tells us that children who feel safe and connected to one another literally have the learning centers of their brains turned on and lit up, ready to learn math, to push through academic challenges, to have the stamina to power through a difficult reading passage. As you can probably imagine, appropriate class sizes and adult to student ratios are essential to this experience. Children deserve and need to feel connected to their school family, to feel there is time and space for their needs to be met by the by the adults caring for them. Teachers must have the opportunity to get to know their students and their learning needs. They need the time to connect and collaborate with their students' families so they can adjust and differentiate instruction to reach each of them. They must have other support educators to bring into a child's school experience to appropriately intervene when needed. Large class sizes and reduction in our ability to intervene by cutting our support positions makes this task overwhelmingly difficult. Our teachers are already pulled in many directions to meet many needs. These cuts would leave our teachers drained, burned out, emotionally unavailable. It not only adds significant stress to the school experience, it allows for our children to feel disconnected. Disconnection leads to increases in disruptive behavior that makes learning difficult for everyone. Our children communicate through behavior. If they do not feel seen or heard, their behavior lets us know. Proactive, intentional, meaningful connection is a must-have in education. I'm so grateful to currently work in a district where relationships between staff and students and our families and connections between our children are thriving, where our children are happy, where our children are supported by numerous caring and talented adults. As a counselor passionate about school, feeling like home, feeling like safety, feeling like joy, I am asking our community to please vote yes on issue 6 on November 8th.
Next is Greg Silverman.
Administrators, board members, community members attending in person and watching virtually. Did you know that 65% of parents with kids attending school in the district did not vote the last time King's local school was on the ballot? Good evening. My name is Greg Silverman, and I am a proud parent of 2 boys, both who currently attend King's preschool and both who cannot wait to be full-time kindergartners next year at South Lebanon Elementary. I personally benefited from growing up in a neighboring community that consistently passed levies to maintain excellence. I experienced firsthand the positive impact it has on students, staff, and the community when schools are made a top priority by its taxpayers. I speak here tonight to those in person and watching virtually because I want our students, staff, and community to continue to experience the excellence that King's local schools provides inside and outside the classroom. Exercising your right to vote has never been easier and more transparent in Warren County. Between now and November 8th, registered community members can vote in person or request a ballot to be sent to their residence. My wife voted in person last week, and it took less than 5 minutes. I had a ballot sent to my house, was able to fill it out on my own time, and put it right back into my mailbox for pickup. Better yet, you can track the status of your ballot by visiting the Ohio Board of Elections website or by downloading the app Ohio Voter Info. I urge you to cast your vote early. Let your voice be heard. Life can often get in the way on election day, with maybe having to stay late at work, attending to a sick kid at home, or rushing to extracurricular activities. By voting early, you can save time, avoid the stress, and know you completed your civic duty. Schools are the heartbeat of their communities and often represent the best of who we are as people, both young and old. We don't live in a perfect union, and everyone knows there is a lot left to be desired on how public schools are funded. But by voting for issue 6, we can at least try and create a more perfect one for our kids, our town, and our future.
Next is John Alley.
Hello,
My name is John Alley, and I've been a Kings resident for nearly 5 years. I have 4 kids in the district, and we've highly enjoyed our time and experience here in Kings. I'm here to share my support for the upcoming operating levy and share a few things that many people do not know, as I also was unaware just a few short months ago. I'd like to think of voting yes for the upcoming levy is thinking about the big picture versus voting against the levy being a very small picture. First, I was surprised to find out that adding newly built residential houses in neighborhoods do not help support our school system financially in the long run. In fact, it hurts the district financially, as we now have over 600 more students attending our schools on a budget that was set 6 years ago when the last levy was passed. It's easy math when you know the facts of how it works. We need to pass the levy to ensure that all King's students receive the quality education and life experiences that a great district should provide. Secondly, I've heard nothing but great things about our district's teachers and staff. We are very lucky to have many tenured teachers who value each of our children. Many of them you've heard from tonight. For many working parents, my wife and myself included, our kids' teachers spend nearly as much time with our kids throughout the week that we are able to. Protect our teachers and staff by voting for the operating levy and eliminating any cuts that would be needed if we do not pass the levy. Again, the small picture is not wanting to support my school district and our future because my taxes will slightly rise. The big picture is to vote to pass the operating levy on November 8th to protect our kids, our town, and our future. Thank you.
And our last speaker is Eric Shower. Am I saying that?
Yeah, you got it right, actually. Hello, my name is Eric Shower. I'm a current junior at the high school, and I've been in the Kings District, thank you, all of my life. My brother and sister recently graduated, and that is Basil. So Basil is my service dog, who's a bit whiny, and she's been with me my sophomore and my junior year of high school. And I'm here today with Basil to support issue 6, the levy, which will be on your upcoming ballot this year. So me and Basil, along with around 650 kids in the district currently, we were on an IEP. That's an individualized education plan. And that means, I was in the special ed department. So these cuts that would be made to our facilities, to our district, it will affect me, it will affect Basil, and it will affect so many others. I think a core tenet of Kings is that everyone deserves an equal education, especially Basil, who cannot be quiet at this time. And without this budget, we will not receive that. So people have brought up cuts and how people won't want to move to the district and all of that sort of thing. But Kings is built on our schools. My parents moved here because of the schools. So many other kids' parents have moved here because of the schools. If we do not have the schools, if we do not have the funding, if we do not have the district, then why would someone move here at all? Why not go to Mason, who does have the budget? We, as a community, we are so centered around this school. So many people have come to this district because of our schools. And if we go and we cut that off, we cut off teachers, we cut off students like me, it will substantially affect our community, our students, and it will affect our futures. I mean, even me as a senior next year, upcoming kids, a lot of people in this audience have kids themselves. what will happen to your kids if they cannot get an equal opportunity to get an education? We need schools. We need our community. And if we do not pass this levy, that's going to be affected. Our community as a whole, the Kings Mills, this Kings district will be substantially affected. That's why I hope that every person on this room or watching will join me and very loud Basil today on supporting issue 6. Thank you.
That concludes our public participation for the evening. Next on the consent agenda are the items for approval from the treasurer. Mr. Morrow, did you have anything you needed to add this evening? Or?
I do not, but I'll entertain any questions from the board.
Now I feel like a lounge singer. Did you all have any further questions for Mr. Morrow?
I do not.
So with respect to items 1 through 4, the minutes from the work session, regular meeting, financial items, and the public records log, Mr. Morrow, could you please call the roll?
We need a motion.
Oh, excuse me, I need a motion to approve those first 4 items.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Morrow, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. And I see lastly, Mr. Morrow, you have the wellness event. Was there any further information there?
No, Mr. President, but if there's any questions.
We have any questions regarding the wellness event? All right, may I have a motion to approve that as well?
I'll make that motion. I'll second the motion.
Before we go with the vote, I want to let everyone know I'll be abstaining from this vote as this is being sponsored by my employer.
Thank you, Ms. Skrull. Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. Next, I see we have no items for approval for the superintendent. So next on the consent agenda are the items for approval from the assistant superintendent concerning HR and business. Mr. Spinner, was there anything that you need to add, sir?
Thank you, President Belfrom, King's Board of Education. I would like to recognize a resignation we received due to the purposes of retirement for Miss Kathy Wells, current speech pathologist in our preschool. Kathy has provided 31 years of service to education. We would like to congratulate her on those years of service and congratulate her on her retirement. Thankfully, she'll be with us the remainder of the school year, so we look forward to continuing our work with her here in Kings.
May I have a motion to approve the personnel items?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. See, we have no items, further items from Mrs. Martin, Mr. Freeman. Items presented by the board. Did we have anything discussed this evening?
I have an achievement liaison little page of information from the district. First, there were 4 Kings High School seniors received a letter of commendation from the 2023 National Merit Scholarship Program. Congratulations to Nick Hoyne, Kaylee Nolan, Ethan Struckfuss, and Dylan Ward. Nick and Ethan both have plans to study chemical engineering. Kaylee is planning on studying mechanical engineering, and Dylan is planning on studying business. Congratulations to those 4 high school students. King's High School art teacher, Katie Hagan, knows how to get the best work from her students. She nominated 2 of her students' work for a statewide display. Congratulations to 8th grader Abby Crouch and Daly Spinner, who were chosen to represent Kings Junior High at the 50th anniversary of the Ohio Middle School Level Association Conference. Their artwork will be on display during the conference in Columbus. And the next few items are all on relationship building. Kings Junior High collected over 1,700 items for the King's Food Pantry as part of the PAC Day. PAT means pride, attitude, commitment, together. Building relationships and being a role model is key. Watch the interactions on the Kings Junior High Night News. And this month, you'll see bad dad jokes. Many teachers and even students joined in to try and have the funniest jokes. Looping second grade teacher Abby Burrows reported the class earned 20 compliments from staff outside of the classroom. The class chose to celebrate by bringing in a small toy from home. Stuffed and rubber animals make great reading and writing buddies. Ms. Gilbert spent some time Monday, which was our in-service day, finishing up some global feedback for her seniors and their college essay story reflections. Gilbert uses @Loom as a way for her students to screencast their reflections and walk her through their stories. @Loom allows the teacher to provide immediate feedback right within the student's video. What an exciting way to handle that situation. And our SRO officers, Deputy Shepherd was seen in the media center working with students on various STEM activities. In fact, all of our SRO and security staff do more than just wait for something to happen. They are constantly building relationships and interacting with our students, especially maybe a student that needs just a little extra support. So many happy children and staff members at the KME Color Run, the JF Burns Fun Run, and SLE's Walkathon. Each of the PTOs sponsored these fundraisers and they surpassed their goals. Volunteers were needed, many volunteers. They dedicated their time in creating something special for all of the children. Anyone who attended any of those events could see lasting relationships being built and memories that will last a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we had, oh, go ahead.
I do have one item that I would like to present by the board is I want to offer congratulations to Peggy Phillips. Last week, I had the honor of joining her at the Southwest Ohio Regional Fall Conference, where she was awarded the Aptitude Award, which there was, 4 or 5 winners in the entire region. So it was a great honor, and Peggy, congratulations, well deserved.
Thank you.
Since we had so many public participants today, I think it's worth the board having a discussion about a couple of items, if that's okay. Sure. Let's start with number 1. The student, his name's Connor. He, to the people at home that are watching that couldn't hear, because I understand about the first 3 or 4 speakers, people couldn't hear, but Connor sent a, what is the word I'm looking for? Petition, thank you. A petition around and has over 450 signatures asking for the day after Halloween off. Also because we have a big football game that day. I had heard about a student doing this. I had no idea what student it was. And I want to say to Connor, kudos to you. You know, you see a problem and rather than just complain about it, you did something about it. And so I think we should congratulate Connor on what he did. I will say, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I don't know that we can cancel school the day after Halloween, but my personal opinion is I think we should look at this on future calendars. Look and see how we can fit this in, because he has a point. Kids have a right to be kids. And it's a big night. They like to have a good time. So if anybody else has any thoughts on that, but I was impressed by the young man.
I do remember for many years seeing students the day after Halloween when it didn't happen to fall on a Friday, and the exhaustion of the elementary students from the sugar high, and maybe even sneaking a few pieces of candy before the bus arrived, and then many going down to the nurse because they were sick from all of the chocolates and sweets and fun from the night before. So I happen to agree with you, Janelle, that it could be something that Mr. Sears or whoever is in charge of planning that calendar in the future, that maybe that's the 4-day fall weekend. If it happens on a Monday or a Friday.
Any other thoughts?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right.
No, I haven't really thought about it.
All right.
I've had plenty of conversations in my household about this in the past couple of weeks. And I commend my son. He took this all on himself. He took the lead and asked me what he needed to do. I said, get a petition, get it approved, get it out there. But I agree that this is probably something we need to look at for future consideration.
We're not on. Yeah. So here's what I'll say. I think we should absolutely celebrate Connor and all of our students. There were students that they need purpose often. And so what you're seeing as a result of the educational experience the kids have, the opportunities that our teachers are providing, and they're building the skills necessary to be able to tackle real world problems. And so for them, this is real, it matters. And so they go through a lot of these. I like this to the future skills we're working on, and we're seeing those on display right now. Communication, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, career, college, and life ready. Those are our 5 power skills that we are going to be rolling out. We're seeing it play out with our students right here in this room. It's tremendous. We should celebrate that. We have taken all of the board feedback and the feedback from Connor, and we will consider, we will take any feedback into consideration for future calendars. I will say Who Day this year, but I think we're going to be in school the day after Halloween. So I think we're good. Thank you.
I will not say that word.
Okay, and then one. Oh, is this on?
Yes.
One other item. A couple people brought up the fiscal oversight of the state versus being in an emergency situation. Mr. Morrow, could you please clarify exactly your communication with the state of where we are financially right now?
So it is factual that we are not under warning or caution. We're not under one of those terms, but we are under oversight by ODE. Just last year, it was prior to me starting, we had to submit a plan to ODE that was basically a plan A and a plan B for how we're going to fix our financial issues. Plan A is pass a levy. Plan B is make reductions. And I've talked to ODE numerous times since I started in March. They want updates on how we're progressing on each plan, and then any positive or negative other things that were unplanned that have happened at the district. So we are under fiscal oversight. We have a plan submitted. I talk to a fiscal consultant at ODE regularly.
If I may, Mr. Rob, just to clarify, and that conversation, that cadence you're having is apart from the 5-year forecast that we have to submit.
Correct. So we submit the forecast twice a year, And then if it hits certain triggers as far as your cash balance declining, cash balance going in the negative, then that triggers them to reach out to us and say, we need to know what you guys are doing to fix the problems that you're forecasting, which brings in the plan and then the follow-ups on the plan. So yes, it is triggered by that forecast.
Okay, I just have one last item. I'm sorry, I'm taking so much time.
You're fine.
I guess what I want to say is to everyone that spoke tonight, we hear you. This situation is not fair to anybody. Everybody defines crisis differently. I would define losing 70 teachers a crisis. That I would define that way. You may not, and I respect your opinion if that's not a crisis to you. But what I will say is, I don't think any of us should be working against each other, because the problem is with our state funding. Unfortunately, we need levies to fund our school district. That's how our state has us set up right now. That's not fair to anybody. I don't think there's a single person in this room that wants to pay more taxes. It's just that is the way it is set up. I will tell you, and I've said it in a previous meeting, I have been in contact with state senators. I've been in contact with state representatives. People are looking at our numbers and saying this is not fair, but there is no urgency to fix this. I can tell you personally, I will not stop working on this as long as I am on the board. I will not stop. When this levy passes, I will keep working on this to fix this for all taxpayers in our community. But I will tell everybody that spoke, I heard you. And I want you to know, you're right. It's not fair to the elderly. It's not fair to the poor. It's not fair to the young families, and it's not fair to the kids or our teachers, or I could keep going on. It's not right. But the situation is not us, it's the state. So that's what I needed to say on that.
Mrs.
I'm
Goodman.
sorry, it's not.
Mrs. Goodman.
I can talk to you after,
Yes,
Mrs.
can we
Goodman. Thank
let us
you.
conduct the meeting,
Well, I'll
finish
talk
the
to you
meeting?
afterwards. I appreciate it.
I have a question for Mr. Morrow. Could you explain, I believe it was Mr. Sheeter that said 2016 funding and then 2021?
Yeah, I think when we're looking at our revenues, we look at 2 different years. In communications that I've seen tend to look at 2017. I don't like to compare that year because that year did not include a full year of revenues from the levy that was passed in 2016. 2018 was the first fiscal year where we received a full year of that levy. So that's why I like to use that as a baseline when we're looking at revenue growth up to right now. Is that the question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Have any further comments or questions? All right. Move forward to legislative updates from Mr. Skrull.
Thank you for remembering me before wanting to adjourn. So it's been a pretty quiet month legislative wise. There's not been anything new sent to Governor DeWine nor anything signed by him into law. There is some State Board of Education activity I did want to spell out though. So late in September, the State Board of Education, they approved a resolution to authorize the ODE to put out a request for proposals for a search firm with the purpose of finding candidates for the state superintendent of public instruction. As of mid-October, they had announced that numerous search firms have submitted RFPs. So the state board will evaluate the proposals as they consider next steps. In addition, the State Board of Education voted 12-7 to send a resolution to the Executive Committee for further consideration. This resolution opposes the proposed changes to the federal rule that would interpret Title IX as banning discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And in addition, I had put out the watch list last month, as there has been no changes to the watch list. There's nothing new to report on that.
Any questions for Mr. Skrull? Thank you, Mr. Skrull, for that update. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion. Mr. Morrow, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
It's adjourned. Everyone, please have a good evening.